We are the generation of change. We have the power in a new viewpoint and we're going to change the world. Watch us. Good day everyone, my name is Albert Ambubuyag and before we start, let me introduce my group mates.
Benos Reyes to be discussed about Theory 1, Goddess Worship to God Worship.
And I am Mia Montana and I will discuss about Theory 2, Eve and the Other.
And lastly, I'm Ken Montaron. I will be discuss about the Theory 3, A Shape of Production.
But before we proceed to our discussion, we will conduct first a motivational exercise to test your ability to guess the missing word. Sound exciting, right? So this game is called 2 Picks 1 Word. The mechanics of this game is you will be given 2 pictures that connected to our topic, which is the theories and the origin of women oppression, that you need to guess the missing word and you have 5 seconds to solve each of one. So everyone, are you ready to start our game? Okay, let's count in 1, 2, 3, let's go. We are here this day to talk about the theories of the origin of women oppression. To understand this topic, stay tuned.
Our objective is not to try and persuade you to take a stand on this issue, but we would like to try and present both sides of the issue to you in order to better educate the public on a very important about the issue of gender inequality.
What is the importance of feminist theory in our society? For you, Mia, what is your opinion about this?
For me, feminist theory help us better understand and address unequal and oppressive gender relations.
Thank you for that, Mia. Consequently, a core principle of feminist theories is to include female perspectives and experiences in all research and practice. Feminist theories, though, do not treat women or men as homogeneous groups but rather recognize that gender privilege varies across different groups of women and men. The objectives of this topic are to determine the rudiment of sexual discrimination, examine on how discrimination has evolved based on historical circumstances, and lastly, justify how essentialist reasoning contributes to women oppression. First to be discussed are the theories and the origin of women's oppression. The concept of women's oppression, how did it happen that half of the world's population is systematically discrimination? Women bear children and mostly raise their children from infancy and up to their early years. Women are source of cultural and emotional education of children. And at some point, in all ancient cultures, women were hailed as mediator to the gods, hidden role of women throughout history.
And now, I will be discuss about the Theory 1, the Goddess Worship to God Worship. There is a paradigm shift because of the earlier women were needed to be motivated and their family member had to be concealed to allow the woman to contribute to the nation. It could be by means of studying or getting employment or involving in politics. One prominent theory on the oppression of women concerned the shape of paradigms. From Asian civilization that worshipped the earth goddess to the male suppression of this goddess, woman-centric cults exist prior to the phallocentric cults. The progression from female-centric to male-centric worship was a slow and violent process. So, women experience forced subordination due to the pre-existing patriarchal hierarchy, and yet their role in the religion highlights their integral position within our society. According to Miles, women were less valued and their status were threatened with the expansion of Phallus worship around 1500 BC. Um, the theory claimed that women were less valued and their status were threatened with the expansion of phallus worship around 100,000 BC. So, phallo worship means worship of the generative principle as symbolized by the sexual organ or act of sexual intercourse. So, although religion activities that involve sexuality or the symbolize of the male and female sexual organ are something called phallic cult. So, there is no evidence that any cult is permanently phallic. So she explained that earlier civilization first great god were a woman. People started believing that the male bore the created power in which the seed of man developed inside the female, who served as a receptive vessel of life. As male power grew, inequality also increased. Women become seem not to active partner but only the passive incubator. Because life was not seen as something that emerged mysteriously from the womb but was planted there by male organ. Men appreciated for themselves the position of power in the universe, and women were no longer seen as active partner, but as passive incubator. As male power grew, inequality also increased, and men valued themselves as a powerful, creative person. The theory of the mother goddess cult seemed highly speculated. However, Miles showed historical evidence of the mother goddess cult's theory, the appearance of female, their prevalence, or as well as their destruction.
Again, good day everyone. Theory 2, Eve and the Other. Western religion also influenced the negative perception of women. So, the study of women and religious examines women in the context of different religious faiths. This includes considering female gender roles in religious history as well as women participate in religion. Particular consideration is given to how religion has been used as a patriarchal tool to elevate the status and power of men over women, as well as how religion portrays gender within religious doctrines. The story of Eve, since she is of Adam's flesh, she is his equal. For everyone who knows the story of Eve, there is one story tells that Lilith refused to lay beneath Adam during sex. For your information, Lilith is the first wife of Adam and supposedly the primordial she-demon. She believed they were created equal, both from the dust of the earth. Thus, she should not have to lay beneath him. After Adam disagreed, Lilith fled the Garden of Eden to gain her independence. The stories show how a woman had deprived all of humankind the abundance that the Garden of Eden has to offer. Ultimately, a woman's folly brought suffering to men. In the story of Adam and Eve, they were given a good life in the Garden of Paradise. They were warned not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. A wily animal, usually taken to be the devil cloak in the form of a snake, seduced Eve to take the fruit from the tree and share with Adam. But the snake seduced Eve because she was the weaker one. But, whatever the reason, Adam and Eve were banished by Yahweh to live outside the garden. Eve had caused the downfall of humanity because she had listened to the snake. So, the message of the story must be noted that the story shows how women have deprived all humankind the abundance that the Garden of Paradise had to offer. a woman's folly had brought suffering to man. According to Miles, the links fall to the goddess cult to the rise of discrimination treatment against women. Women are perceived to be feeble-minded, of lesser value to men, and ultimately women has the potential to cause the downfall of great men. As shown by the story of Eve and Pandora, women was casted as the bearer of suffering because she was weak-willed and could not be trusted. She could not be allowed to be left alone lest she caused some trouble. Women were the catalyst for men to lose their reason and responsibility.
Hello everyone, next I'll be discussing the theory 2, which is the shape of production. The shape of production from hunter-gathering to agriculture has contributed to the oppression of women. How reproduction became an important task in society. As is needed for worker, women had to be watched, protected and controlled. The shift to agriculture is likewise a plausible theory for the suppression of women. It was important to keep women at home to produce and raise children. This means the women's roles include childbearing, staying at home, and taking care of their children. But this is one of the stereotypes about women that we should not normalize as it causes limitation and discrimination against women. Women's activities had to be monitored so that it could be focused on reproduction, so sexuality had to be overseen so that the community could be assured that the children they produce would become loyal members of the community. Sexuality had to be overseen so the community could be assured that the children they produce will be loyal to the community. A shift from food production to laborer production has oppressed women as a result. In this theory, suppression of the value of the woman and their awareness of their own value are evident so that they would continue to accept their role as a receptive grounds for the seed of men on which the next generation of workers is to be grown. Men focus on the agricultural labor because plouging is difficult for children. At this point, women were no longer involved in food production, but in laborer production. Historically, those who are involved in food production were more empowered, venerated for their fertility, and were worshipped for their power to bear life. Historians generally agree that at some point in history, the society shifted to become male-dominated. However, women lost significance in their communities and were withdrawn from public life when their participation in the main economic life was reduced. Their withdrawal from public life became even more pronounced when people, mostly men, were employed as laborers in the commercials. Cash economy. Women raising children were further constrained from participating in employment when paid work began to take place in location away from home, because employment that would bring home cash was becoming necessary for survival. Men's roles as paid workers were viewed more essential while women's function as housewives were perceived unproductive. In earlier timelines of history, society had a higher regard for women than today. Women are being worshipped for their capability in giving a new life. However, in today's society, it is more phallocentric or centered or emphasizing the masculine viewpoints which cause gender inequality and oppression.
Oppression is often justified by essentialist reason. Essentialist arguments assert that the oppression of women is due to the nature of their gender or their socially constructed rules, such as some people think of women as the lesser sex because of their biological makeup. Next, women are smaller and less bulky, hence cannot become good warrior, laborers, or athletes. Next, women are built for childbearing and child-rearing because of these bodies. Women are perceived for having weak bodies and weak minds. Women's mind is assumed incapable of abstract, logical thinking such that they are believed less capable of scientific and other highly academic endeavors. Women come with natural impurities because they bleed on a monthly basis. So, the summary of this lesson is The subjugation of women is not an essential or necessary state. The liberation of women from this inequality should be discussed because change can and must happen. But change will only happen if people are made aware on how the status of women was constructed. Operation of women is made possible because of existing system that orient people towards oppressing women, not because women are fundamentally weaker or flawed. That's all for today, everyone. Thank you for joining us in our discussion. I sincerely appreciated your attention today. Once again, thank you and have a nice day.